Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
I wish I'd never seen you again, Peter whispered, closing the door behind his wife. Kelly had a genius knack for pissing off her husband in a matter of minutes. And then, as if nothing had happened, she was going to work, leaving him alone with all the anger that was rising in him like lava. He looked out the window just in time to see his wife walking across the yard. Light, independent red hair and inappropriately bright spot. In this overcast gray day, Peter said again, louder this time. Kelly, as if she heard these words, suddenly turned around and saw her husband at the window. Peter made no effort to give his face a calm expression. It would be all right. I don't want him to pretend anything for the sake of this one. He wouldn't make a comedy of himself in front of anybody. Who doesn't like it? Get out. So all Kelly could see was his grim face, his eyebrows drawn back, and, more importantly, his eyes, which looked like little evil Baravniks, as if they wanted to drill right through her. She shrugged and turned away. It was time to go to work. Peter, seeing his wife walk to the gate, stepped away from the window and lay down on the bed. How was he sick of his familiar surroundings? The table, the bed, the closet. How was the classic? I can't see anymore. Evil, he thought. And I can't see the apartment. And I hate the furnishings. And anyway, he took all these objects off the wall. A guitar. Lazily plucked the strings. Music. The only good thing left in this house. He thought. Well, and that Kelly was trying to kill. Lately, she'd often asked him to play it quieter. And when he listened to music, she asked him to turn down the volume too. Music should be played louder. Peter objected. You can feel it. Kelly, on the other hand, didn't share that opinion. I'm not deaf anyway, she answered. And I don't need it to yell at the whole neighborhood to feel the music. In the end, Peter decided that his wife just didn't like music, and that was further proof that Kelly wasn't worth it. She was so ordinary, so trivial about everything making money, putting up some decent beauty in the house. Taking up hobbies in her spare time, a bore. If he hadn't been forced into it by the harsh necessities of life, he sure as hell would have married, much less Kelly. Kelly was already mopping the floors. She considered this part-time job a great stroke of luck. The barbershop was close to home, and there were no special requirements for cleaners. It was clean and perfect. No one for an unnoticed speck of dust would make a scandal, and the work will not throw out. True, the pay was not much either. But there was never any extra money. Right. Anyway, Kelly certainly never had any. And now, Miranda, the manager of the beauty kingdom, watched the red-headed cleaning lady closely. Yes, the girl has given up a lot. She lost weight, the way her jeans hang out. Pathetic. I wonder if she eats anything sometimes. Maybe it's not from malnutrition. The nerves take their toll too. And with a husband like that Peter of hers, he's been hanging around. He seemed to want to learn something from the masters. But it all ended sadly grand scandal, during which Peter shouted that the salon management wants to return to the slave system, because this system will give them a coveted opportunity not to pay for other people's labor. Having broken through, the idiot left. Kelly, on the other hand, was truly pitied. She was so embarrassed, so ashamed of her husband's behavior, although no one had said a word to her. What did she have to do with it? Miranda came over and took the mop from the girl's hands. Let me do it. You need to rest. You are as tired as I don't know who. Miranda, what are you doing? Miranda was astonished. He was the one who stood up for the girl. He was the one who wanted to give Kate a chocolate bar as a present, and he didn't have any money. And where would he get it from? He comes from a poor family, and he didn't have a start in life, and everyone seems to think that he didn't. I don't have a soul in the whole world but you, Kate. No one can understand me like you can. And then she walks around all proud and shining. What a scum and a little bandit, she's one soulmate proud of it. You see that no one can understand this ruffian, but she does. You see what a precious talent she has. And again she coddles him, and he treats his bruises and goes on his way, on his quest for new adventures and victories. And when the money comes in, he goes straight to the pub with the girls. Of course, she'll do her time, waiting for him to fatten up. and she seriously thought that this scoundrel would come to his senses. What a nice girl loves him, all clean and kind. Well, yes, he ran away to understand it. That's how he tortured her for a year, and would have continued to torture her. But then some friends of his offered him something. He, happy to Kate, came, brought champagne, but such cheapest, and said, "This is the last time you drink such a drink. And then you what? Only crystal. I will have a lot of money. We'll live with you, and the world will shudder at our scale." So that was his business strategy, shall we say. And all this strategic planning ended with the bastard going to jail for armed robbery. And what do you think, Kate? What do you think? She went to see him, carried the parcels herself, went around like a ragamuffin, eating only porridge, just to send meat to her criminal, and she was glowing herself. She was so thin and pale. I went to see her and my friends, and I decided to keep an eye on her. Otherwise the fool would be lost. So we took turns visiting her. We brought food so she could eat at least. We didn't give her any money. We knew that she would immediately run to the store to spend it on her dickhead. Yes. So I go to her, and suddenly I see where her braid is rooted, and her braid is cut short. Kate's hair is short, and she's trying to do it both ways in the mirror, and asks, doesn't he love me for getting it cut? I am trying to get to the bottom of this. I said, why did you decide to get a haircut? She starts bluffing that she wants a haircut. I wanted a change. I think you're lying, my friend. I had already worked in a hairdresser's for a year. Well, I know just so they do not form long hair, and under the boy does not cut ever. This means that either the hair is spoiled badly, or just something bad happened. In general, I nailed it to the wall. She confessed. She didn't have any money. And this one, I don't even know what to call it, sends me a message. I want to. Honey, I can't get enough. Send me some candy that I don't mind. Kate thought and brushed her braid and took it to the hairdresser. They paid her, and she bought some candy. I remember looking at her and thinking it was good that she had figured out about her hair. Otherwise, she would have run to donate blood in order to buy candy. And I felt so good that she didn't go to the donor station, that I didn't even scold her. I just looked at her and was happy. I mean, you see how it was. Me and my friends, and I could already expect everything from her. Was she like a lunatic? She was in love, you know, love. So she waited for him. He got out of jail and told her that he had 3 more absentee girls. 1 rich, 1 beautiful, and he was going to the 3rd because she was warming him up with the most delicious packages. And you say, Kate, where do you want to go? Go do whatever you want. And don't you dare go to my new family. When I found out about it, I was so relieved. Well, I think Kate's gonna come to her senses now. Is she here? Asked Kelly. Keep your pockets open. This one sat down again after 2 months and started writing love letters to our idiot again. I fought with her so much. Then I shouted at her. How stupid can you not understand that it's not you wants? It's your parcels. She's like under hypnosis. She says it's my chance. When he sees that I remained faithful to our love and forgave him his mistake, he'll understand everything. He'll understand that there's no woman in the world better than her. And then she says, I'll give him a baby and we'll live as a family. So why am I bringing all this up? Who knew about this story? Everyone said that's what Kate was like. She protects her love and doesn't trade it for others. It's a blessing to meet such a decent and faithful girl. Well, they did, didn't they? But what was it like for her? She better not be called so good, but she be happier. Selfishness is said to be bad. But I think when it's in moderation, it's even healthy. And what people will say about it don't give a damn. They'll talk and forget. But you have to live. What happened to Kate? Kelly asked. Did she wait? No, Miranda brushed her off. He was so rude towards the end that he offered her in a letter another plan for a happy life. He writes to her, Come on, Kate, I will live with you and with that one, well, who spoiled him with delicious shows. And then he writes his illiterate scribbles. I love both of them, Kate, for your patience and your loyalty, and her for her abundant and delicious food. And I cannot choose between you. So my heart is filled with anxiety. Will you understand me? Well, that's how I tell it. And what he wrote there, but his vocabulary was small and mostly consisted of all kinds of swear words. Even Kate's mind was a little clearer. She sent him away. But how much time she wasted, and how much time she spent improving her health. The whole year there was physical exhaustion and nervous, and she was afraid of her return. She couldn't sleep at night for fear. Then it went away, of course, but Kate sold the apartment. She went to the south where she settled down. She found a nice, kind man. He married. They'd live together now and have children with her. That's the story. Kelly, think about it from here. Peter didn't notice himself dozing off, but he woke up hungry. Kelly is not back yet, but he is about to go to the store, get some food, buy it all the same, sometimes even pitifully. It happens that he has such a good appetite. There are people who cannot think of food all day long, but he does not know how. This morning his wife made a pan full of pancakes, and now there's none left. But that doesn't mean we have to sit around hungry now. And where the hell is Kelly? I'd like to know. Peter flitted around the house looking for something clear to eat, but as luck would have it, nothing substantial was to be found. Just some gingerbread. That was all there was to it. He made some tea and dipped a wooden gingerbread in his mug. It was quite edible. Not at all. He had eaten more than that when he was a penniless student. So what's with all the juice and gingerbread? It's nothing. Peter smiled, remembering his time wandering around the dorms, the apartments he and his classmates had rented together. Hungry and poor then, but still more fun than now. Kelly came along just as he was about to graduate. What kind of prospects did he have then? No prospects at all. And the ones that did exist were blurred, like a watercolor that someone had inadvertently filled with water. So he would get his diploma. And in fact, what next? Where would he go? He'd be kicked out of his dorm. His parents won't help him with money. And he doesn't have a job. Now, looking around, Peter noticed that most of his classmates, especially many of them, were those who knew that they cannot count on anyone. Already since the third or fourth year, they tried to get a job in their specialty. At the time, Peter laughed at their utter stupidity because they went to work where they were hired, taking no account of time or fatigue. They agreed to paltry wages. This, in his opinion, was not only stupid and ridiculous, but also seemed somehow unhealthy. When you're young, you should live, not work, he often said. But now he realized that those he laughed at and considered slaves to the system had already gained experience. They didn't have to think about where to go when they graduated. Many of them already had a clear rather than watercolor blurred perspective. There were those who had managed to start a family. Only he himself seemed frozen at the start. And his life by the end of his fifth year remained exactly the same as it had been at the beginning of his first. Get a job, acquaintances advised. Start with something, and then it will get easier. Go to the army. My son, my mother shrugged. They'll give you food and a roof over your head. You won't even have to spend money on clothes. Mom got married again recently. Her chosen one was this time a former serviceman, sincerely convinced that the army is the best place for a man. He remembered his comrades warmly with respect for the command, and could not imagine anyone not wanting to serve his country as honestly and faithfully as he did, but not the tedious search for work. Not doing military service didn't appeal to Peter, to hunch over for such little money and put up with his superiors' shenanigans. He wrinkled his nose or go into the army and live by the rules. You've got to be kidding me. Mom, this is what you imagine me to be. What job do you see me in? Answer me. Is it a soldier or an employee of some department in some obscure research institute, which is unknown for what it exists? No. My mother shook her head. Neither one or the other. You can only be a free artist. I can't say that I like it very much. Well, what can I do? God gave you many talents, but an empty head. You get carried away, you get passionate about something, and then 2 weeks later you forget about it. A free artist. Peter valued his freedom above all else. A dull existence at work obeying a military order. Is this what I was made for? He pondered more and more, sinking into a gloomy mood. Was this the real life? To drag myself to work every day, to get up early in the morning and come home in the evening, only to get a miserable paycheck or the army at the end of the month. No, I don't even want to think about serving in the army. Otherwise, there's no place to live and no money. Where would I get it? And in the meantime, the days flew by faster and faster, and my diploma was getting closer and closer. And the dorm superintendent was a bastard, already hinting that it was time to put some things away. And Kelly showed up unnoticed as a friend. Not pretty in the sense of Peter, but pretty, well-read, but boring. Look, he told her, what kind of girls are there? Imagine that. A blonde, long-legged girl. Out of whimsy, she does half the nightclub. And then she throws the bartender $10 and says choke on the bastard. He looked at Kelly, expecting her to share his delight in admiring or at least envying this queen's audacity, but the girl only shrugged her shoulders. You don't understand what's so attractive about it. I think it's just boorish and nothing more. Peter shook his head condescendingly. Well, what can this gray mouse understand about such things? Boorish driver is unpredictability. It is the self-confidence of strength, expression, confidence beautiful, truly beautiful women. No, Kelly, this will never understand. He himself would have loved to have some of these obviously not poor and obviously spectacular girls there. They even liked him, and they willingly spent from 1 to several nights with him. But that was the end of their relationship. Peter seemed a bit simple to such girls. And why would they want to get involved with a beggar? There were other girls who were ready to join his life immediately. But they were ordinary, as poor as he himself. Common girls among them were beautiful. Well, what can you take one beauty to spend time? With pleasure, of course. But not to get into a serious relationship. Too unpromising. Especially pretty ladies without money tend to demand from her husband to fulfill all their whims. And it turned out that Kelly was the only viable option. For one thing, she worked and was not afraid of work. Secondly, she had an apartment. True, it was a place in an old wooden house, but it was not rented. And thirdly, Kelly seemed to be a surprisingly naive person. For instance, Peter could come over to her place after a night at the club, lay on his bed and get a good night's sleep, then eat, shower, and go back to the club. And the girl treated this with a truly Buddhist calm. She thought she and Peter were friends. And what's wrong with letting a friend sleep it off or sharing his dinner with him? True, once Peter, taking advantage of her hospitality, overstepped his bounds, and for a whole week came every day to eat and sleep. Even Kelly has run out of patience. Peter, of course, I am always ready to let friends in, rest, and feed. I never refuse. I understand that all kinds of things happen in life. But honestly, when a friend comes over just to eat, sleep, and bathe, there's a lot of doubt about whether you're being taken advantage of. How can you say that? With courtly sadness, said Peter. Don't you understand that it doesn't matter whether I'm asleep or awake? It matters to me that you are near. And Kelly's naive soul seemed to believe this lie. Peter, looking at her embarrassment, laughed inwardly. Where had she come from? How could she have lived while remaining such a dandelion of God? But Kelly believed and even seemed frozen that she thought so badly of him. What kind of a fool is that? Now Peter thought that was the moment he decided he was going to marry this naive girl. Too unspoiled. She'd figure out what he really wanted from her by now. Or maybe she never would. Kelly returned home, strangely thoughtful and, oddly enough, empty-handed at the store. Why didn't she come in? Surprised her husband. There's nothing to eat in the house. Tired. Very shrugged Kelly. I didn't have any energy at all. Maybe you should go. I won't go, Peter said. He often refused his wife's requests, and he did it partly so that Kelly would not think he could boss him around, and partly simply out of a sense of inner contradiction. But you said yourself there's no food in the house, didn't you? Aren't you hungry? I am, but I'm not going to the store. You could have gone there yourself, but you did not do it to make me go. I'm not your servant. Well then, sit hungry. Kelly grinned. I've got to wash up and get to bed early tomorrow. How confused Peter was. Buy groceries tomorrow morning. What are we going to eat? My wife reacted with outrageous calm. I'll pick something up on my way to work. What are you having? I don't know what you're having. You'll probably wait until the evening when I come back with the shopping. She said all this in a tired, even bored tone, as if she was explaining to a dumb third grader in 1000th grade why 2 times 2 equals 4. It was humiliating. How dare she treat him like that? "All right," the husband replied in an icy tone. "I will go to the store, but I need money." Kelly, without wasting words, took out her purse and pulled out some bills. Here he almost snatched the money out of her hands and quickly threw on his jacket. Have a good night. The evening, which was so cozy to look out the window, turned out to be windy and cold. Autumn. Peter thought wistfully of the fact that here was the beginning of September and summer was passing by like a stray bullet. And he hardly even noticed it. To lull his wife's vigilance, he had to pretend from time to time that he was looking for work. And he even had to go to interviews a couple of times. He even spent a total of a week on some silly internships from which he quickly walked away. Then he made up a blooming allergy, whatever, and stayed home. In short, Peter's summer was the most mediocre it used to be. What a summer he had in his last year as a student. It reminded me of a scene from a movie. Peter is dancing, feeling the eager eyes of girls on him. Here and there flashes spots of color, sweeping across the affairs of the dancers. Bright beams, spotlights, music sounds louder and louder. And now he does not know whether it comes from outside or just inside him. He himself becomes charged with a sound wave. And those heated stares make him want to dance even longer, to shock those dangling fools even more. Once Peter rips off his t-shirt, he stays naked to the waist and continues his dance. The girls are squealing louder and louder. There's one of them, apparently the boldest. She bursts toward him, wraps her arms around his shoulders, hoping to form a duet. He grabs the girl by the waist. Sweat is rising between her shoulder blades. He's the brightest, most visible in this club. All the women here dream about him. Finally, the music stops. Peter, tired but pleased with himself, approaches the bar. There a friend is waiting for him. Peter slams his palm on the bar. The bartender himself nonchalantly looks open behind his dark glasses, nods seriously, and mixes a cocktail. Now we can take a break. And now what a dull bump from one day to the next for a wife for whom all the glitz and glamour of the clubs means nothing more than last year's boring snow, an ongoing affair with that neighbor, and the constant sense that Kelly is superior in some way to himself in something he doesn't give a damn about. Still, it's important that she has a job and a place of her own. Why him? Because even his teachers thought he was smart. He couldn't get a decent job, such as managing a group of people who were passionate about what they were doing. Instead, at his wife's behest, he weaves through the cold and rain to the store. And Kelly has probably already showered and climbed into a warm bed. What a bitch. He walked into the convenience store and immediately wrinkled his nose at the pungent smell. Do they mop the floors here with chlorine or something? Good evening. Greeted sleepy salesgirl, Peter gloomily looked from behind the cash register at the poor assortment of goods in the store. Yes, everything here is questionable. Hell knows when it was on display. If Kelly hadn't been such an asshole, she would have gone into a normal supermarket, and now it was closed. And this disgusting stall is the only place to stick her nose in. Peter's palms were sweating from anger and resentment toward his wife. You bastard. You'll go to work hungry if you don't eat. Give me 2 beers. There's one right behind your back, and 2 hot dogs. Kelly pretended to be perfectly calm in front of her husband. In fact, she couldn't sleep. She showered as she was going to, climbed into bed. But sleep did not come. It was too frustrating when Peter refused to go to the store with such defiance. And she really was very tired today, and she herself did not notice how she walked past the supermarket. Maybe she would have thought of his refusal as simple, silly, boyish bravado, if it weren't for the fact that this was the second time it had happened. And each time it was so wild, so incomprehensible. What was wrong with a wife asking her husband for something? After all, they are family. Kelly thought sadly that they had raised her to be a good and proper girl. What was the point? What's the use of being good and right if you get such a rude, hurtful attitude in return? She was told that in a family, husband and wife are supposed to take care of each other and support each other. And what does Peter do? He sleeps over at his friends' houses for days at a time. Then some girls call him. One day, Kelly dares to ask why they go consider the fact that he is a married man. Why can't they call? Peter exploded, and Kelly was at a loss for words. Why indeed? Big deal. What little things? He has a wife. And only then she realized that she should not blame these girls but him. After all, it was with his permission, and even encouragement. They call. Kelly also remembered that in winter, no matter how icy it was, Peter wouldn't even let her hold his hand. That's when a woman walks alone, she doesn't fall. He explained his position. And if a man is around, you have to pretend to be gentle. No, that won't work with me. Where did he get this hostility toward women? Kelly tried to figure it out. Why was he trying so hard to push me away, so that I couldn't even count on him for anything? And when they were in a cafe one night, they argued about something and Peter left, leaving her alone at night. Kelly was able to call a cab and get home, and Peter was like that. He called her and wondered why she hadn't followed him and suggested that she come to some dorm he knew where he said it was fun. Kelly hung up silently and didn't say anything back. For some reason, she felt terribly ashamed to tell anyone how her husband was treating her. It made Kelly feel even more lonely. She was so jealous of the girls and admirers she knew. Peter was even more jealous. She had taken a handsome guy, a star of the dance floor. And in fact, it was still a blessing in disguise. One day, even before the wedding, the barber shop required an apprentice, and she brought her husband there in the hope that he would at least start earning some money. Peter then constantly complained to her that he couldn't find work anywhere and was literally starving. But on the way to the barber shop, he suddenly stopped and very seriously said, "Let's agree right away that you will not address me to the customers. And of course, we won't go to and come back from work together. It's better if they don't know that we know each other." Kelly was suddenly hurt by these words, even though they were only buddies then. "But I just don't want to feel obligated to you," he explained. "And you also don't want anyone to think I'm your girlfriend." She grinned. "That might stop you from flirting with others." And the guy didn't deny that either. That's when I needed to tell him to go to hell, she thought. He didn't want to feel obligated, you see. But didn't I tell him about the job opening? Didn't I take him to the barber shop? Of course, he didn't last a week, but that's a detail. And he knew I would never ask him for gratitude. But he didn't want to feel obligated. I think it's much simpler than that. The guy wanted to wag his tail, and maybe some not-so-poor clientele would like him. Yeah, I should have been right there, and then I should have stopped talking to him forever. And for some reason, I just kept going. Why? Was it because of her naivety and lack of experience? Honestly, with all honesty, the girl admitted to herself, "I just could not believe that the guy could seriously act like that. I thought he was fooling around, playing some silly game for fun. But he wasn't faking anything, he was just like that." She remembered the story Miranda had told her over coffee today, and felt at the same time, both funny and sad. Kelly, too, had thought that Peter was just a man deprived of love and the most basic of worries. He seemed to her to know only the fleeting adoration of girls who melted by his outward attractiveness, but after a couple of days fell behind, and it seemed to her that she would be able to warm him. And when she did, he would realize that he had married a good, faithful girl, and then they would live happily ever after. She tried her best, but time after time she ran into rudeness or complete indifference. Kelly suddenly realized that she hadn't listened to her favorite music in a long time, because just hearing her husband began to criticize her musical taste. But what Peter liked was played at full volume in their house all the time. It gave Kelly a headache sometimes, but asking her husband to turn it down was useless. As soon as he turned off the music, he grabbed his guitar. He could play the same tune for hours, and it was a separate kind of torture. One day Kelly, going to bed, took the guitar from her husband's hands and instantly heard it. Now music is beginning to be killed in this house. The only good thing left here. If someone said that to me now with my current brain, I'd explode, she thought. I'd say you live in my house, I feed you and sing to you, and you still act like the last of the cattle. Pack up your things and go. And I don't care where today. And then she was so confused again that she even felt guilty. I'm just tired, she said very quietly. He's just never cared about anyone, and he hasn't seen care for himself. He doesn't know how people treat each other in the family. He's afraid of being hurt, so he hurts himself first, just in case. This will pass. You just have to be patient. But as the days went by, Peter became more and more insolent. He did not hesitate to tell Kelly how bored he was with her, how he hated family life, and constantly tried to leave. At first, she tried to change his mind. But lately, she felt it herself. She had become different. His antics no longer gave her the same pain. She used to think he was intelligent and talented, and wondered why she thought so. She'd simply believed a couple of his acquaintances, who were eager to praise Peter, though they themselves had moved away as soon as they were disappointed in him. More and more often, the true nature of the man Kelly had chosen as her husband came through the painted image. He could argue all he wanted about not needing any material possessions, but it was the material things that kept him around Kelly, her apartment and her salary. To her husband's cries that he wanted to leave and start his own life. At first, Kelly reacted calmly. She was probably used to that too. And once she thought about it, she realized that it no longer frightened her. The thought that Peter might leave. She probably would have been a little happy about it. The only thing that was disconcerting was not the way she had been raised. And getting over that upbringing wasn't easy. In a marriage, you have to be patient. You have to be able to smooth over the rough edges. You cannot run away at the drop of a hat, divorce. A woman has to be wiser. All this is that she instilled since childhood. How do you let go of that? Like Kelly looked at the clock at 1:15 a.m., and Peter still wasn't there. Before, she would have run to call hospitals and morgues. Now she's a scientist. He was out with someone, and all the thing she had to do was go to sleep. Kelly laid down on her side, wiped the tears from her eyes, and started counting sheep. Tomorrow, she would have to make another payment on the loan. And then she also yawned. Yes, then to work, and then to another job. As always, lots to do and no help. She was almost asleep when there was a quiet knock on the door. "Who's there?" asked Kelly without getting up. "I'll get it, Kelly. It's Molly from next door. We need to talk." And Kelly sat down and fumbled for her slippers under her feet. "I'll get it." Molly lived in the apartment next door and was distinguished by two striking qualities: spontaneity and unpredictability. She was a very unpredictable person. She'd drop in at the first of the morning. What was wrong with that? Kelly, that is, wearing a warm robe, looked at her neighbor. Molly, on the other hand, looked like she hadn't even thought about sleeping yet. She had brightly colored makeup and confetti tangled in her hair. "I'll go in," she said, without waiting for an invitation. "I was waiting for you to be alone. I wanted to talk to you. Were you following me?" Kelly was surprised. "How did you know I was alone?" "I did." The neighbor wasn't embarrassed. "That you didn't expect it. It doesn't matter. You don't offer tea, coffee." Molly yawned. "Kelly, would you tell me why you came?" "Because it's way past my bedtime to go to work in the morning." "Why?" "Why?" grumbled the neighbor's sleepy indifference. Kelly annoyed her. "I came for your husband." "Well, how have you eaten?" "So he's not home," shrugged the girl. "If that's all, let's go to bed." Her face was as expressionless as ever. "Kelly," Molly shouted, finally losing the last crumbs of patience. "Are you dumb? Or are you faking it on purpose?" "I came for your Peter, because he told me himself. You don't love him. You don't care. You come home and sleep. He doesn't get any affection from you. So I see he's a normal man. Why should he be wasted? Let me take him. When are you leaving? The door's just gonna shut behind you, that's all." Kelly advised her and crawled back under the covers. "Good night." Molly dazed and stared at her roommate. "Wait, you what?" "I mean what I want. I want to take my husband away from you, and you go to bed. Just go to bed. You'll live with him when you're rocking to. You'll see." Kelly couldn't hold back a slight chuckle. "You're a fool, Molly, but honestly, such an experienced woman, and get into such a mess." Molly stood for a minute, shifting senselessly from foot to foot. Realizing that nothing more could be expected from her neighbor, she left the apartment one last time, slamming the door loudly. Peter settled down on the bench in front of the house with the epithet of making sausages and dough. The thought of his wife going to bed hungry and going without breakfast in the morning gave him good spirits and strength. Of course, if the plan he had conceived succeeded, he would never see this fool again. It would be a fitting end to the evening, a sweet little revenge, so to speak. Just as long as Molly didn't screw up. Judging by the dark windows, Kelly was already asleep. What a wife she was, after all. How could he not see the cold bitch in her? Was he that blind? A normal woman would have been running all over town, looking for her husband. Suddenly, something happened. And this one doesn't care. There aren't any others. She must be having her 10th dream. Molly came out of the house and waved at him. Peter, taking his time, stood up. Well, he asked, coming closer. Did everything as agreed? Oh, fuck her. That woman of yours. Irritatedly through the girl. How do you live with her? She's wooden up to her waist. She's not even. What did she say to you? Asked Peter. She didn't say anything. That's just it. She went to bed. That's all we talked about. How do you live with her like that? I don't know. Peter waved his hand. Well, what are we going to do? He was offended. Another plan to bring his wife to emotion had failed. Peter himself did not know what he wanted in the end. He only saw that Kelly at first, in the very beginning of their marriage, had been something sympathetic, even sentimental, kind, and then more and more ladylike. And then she didn't seem to care about him anymore. She no longer admired him, didn't care for him when he was away for long periods of time, and he needed the feeding of her emotions as proof of love. If you love me, he once asked, why don't I feel like you could kill anyone for me? Kelly shrugged her shoulders. I never thought of love that way. I always thought love was about warmth, support, affection, not about killing. Peter was taken aback by her words. What kind of love is that? No, maybe that would suit some nice man with a weak stew, but not him. Not for him, no way. His woman must be ready to tear apart anyone who looks at him funny with this. And that is the only way to test the truth of love. He sent Molly to his wife, hoping that at least now she would discover her true feelings. But Kelly was not even slapped in the face by her rival. She simply drifted off to sleep. Terrific. You promised, Molly reminded him. Promised that if you did, you pack up right away and go back to my place. And absent-mindedly? Peter asked me again. Oh yes, I remember. But not at night. Wait. He tiptoed into the house and undressed. Kelly was really sound asleep. Yeah, she's a violent woman. They want to take her husband away from her. He lay down in bed, knowing full well that he would not sleep. He was too angry with his wife, having been stolen from side to side. With half an hour to go, he couldn't stand it and turned on the light. Kelly woke up and immediately squeezed his eyes shut. What are you doing? In a sleepy voice, she asked. You're keeping me awake, and you could have gone to bed before your husband came home. With cold fury, he asked. His wife looked at him uncomprehendingly. What was I supposed to do? I came home from work tired late at night. Of course I went to bed, and it didn't bother you that I stayed up so long. He asked. Next question. Was it your first time? She even smiled and seemed to him quite sincere. I am used to it. Lingered and lingered. I don't know where. Peter decided to push her. Let it hypocritically admit it. Let her tell the truth for once in her life, that she did not care about him. So you didn't care that I might have been hit by a car, that I might have been beaten up, robbed. So you just went to bed calmly, like everything was okay. And it didn't matter what happened to me. Peter said tiredly to his wife. I understand that you want to get emotional again, but you're in the wrong place. I'm not going to have this meaningless conversation. I want to go to bed. Peter jumped up like he'd just been stung by a viper. Is that what this is all about? He cried out. An instant, merciless clarification flashed the picture into his mind. And he felt that here it was, that he had understood it, felt it, found the clue. You do have someone. That's what it's all about. I could see you weren't even angry that you'd been out half the night. You didn't even have any anger in your eyes. And I was a fool. I kept thinking, what's the matter? Why are you so calm? Peter, you're a sick man, Kelly said in the same tired voice. Leave me alone. First, your Molly keeps me awake. Now you. And I have to get up in the morning to pay a loan that neither you nor your friend will give you money for. But what do you care? He resented me. That's what matters to you. Well, I'll tell you what. I need love, not credit. You mean when you observe my happiness through the keyhole? He flitted around the room, grabbing his things and dumping them into his backpack. Kelly sat idly on the bed watching him. I need love, not credit, he said, tearing the guitar off the wall once more. Goodbye. Kelly heard the door to Molly's apartment slam and her joyful exclamation. Well, that's good, she thought quite calmly. The trash took itself out. Peter could not know that since her roommate left, she had not slept a second, just lay there with her eyes closed and amazing. And new to her was the feeling she felt. Freedom. Molly, with her intrusion, with her strange monologue, played the part of the last straw. All the indecision of Kelly, the indecisiveness of a good girl, who had been brought up to be patient and loyal and indulgent to the weaknesses of men, dissipated like smoke. She thought of going and filing for divorce tomorrow without a word to her husband. This thought filled her with such joy that she seemed to herself an innocent prisoner who had long been kept imprisoned. And now, at last, she was set free. The door of her prison swung wide open, and those who had forgotten what a prisoner's will looked like. Suddenly she saw a field of parishes, cornflowers and daisies, and a high blue sky. I breathed in the fresh air with my chest full, so much so that she was even a little dizzy. Kelly lay in the darkness, silently celebrating her release. Molly had already forgotten when she first began to be considered a femme fatale, probably back in high school just when she wasn't yet bright. And then the skinny girl watched the owner of the fitness center, where she went with a girlfriend in the hope to get a seductive shape. The man was well into his 40s. His ex-wives could confirm at any time that David's temperament was just fiery, so much so that he was physically incapable of being faithful to a woman for more than 2 months. He looked at Molly as an expensive project. 3. His former spouses had convinced him that it was a thankless task to get involved with mature, established individuals. A future wife must be raised from childhood, so he assigned a personal trainer to the girl, carefully explaining what would happen to him if he made a mistake. Molly was given a training plan and the most thorough advice on nutrition, water, and vitamin intake. A year later, Molly went from a skinny little girl to a girl with the exciting curves of a well-trained body. On this occasion, the owner of the gym decided to hold a small beauty contest among the regular visitors and personally placed a sparkling tiara on the head of his favorite. Molly lost a tear of pride and smiled gratefully at her patron. She spent the entire next year as a young muse, inspiring overweight ladies to take charge of themselves. David ordered several large billboards featuring Molly in a swimsuit. Molly with dumbbells in her hands, Molly sitting in a lotus pose, and each image, of course, had the coordinates of a fitness gym on it. Come and be a sweetie, said a simple slogan. The day after the billboards were installed, Molly woke up a neighborhood star. At school, she suddenly began to enjoy a rabid popularity, although previously it was only teachers paid attention to her, and only to scold her for another C on the dictation test. Even the old women on the benches, who used to call the young people names, paid attention to her. When Molly heard the first walk after her, she straightened her shoulders and walked with confidence, smiling to herself. It was a confession. David was preparing for a new beauty pageant, which, no doubt, Molly was to win again. The grand prize for Miss Fitness was to be a brand new car. Not the most expensive, but very, very pretty. It would be a great coming-of-age present. And besides, it will be already possible to hint fearlessly to girls on continuation of a banquet. David has already rented a suite at the best hotel in town for this purpose. Alas, all his plans were thwarted in the most outrageous way. A week before the contest, the naughty girl had an affair with some fat, pimply major. He turned out to be the son of the director of a sausage factory, and David realized it was destiny. The fitness and sausage rivalry was a fight with unpredictable results. He backed out. Alone in a couple of months, she was already racing around town in a car donated by the Sausage Prince. A couple of times her pretty face managed to flicker in the pages of magazines. Sausage Prince dreamed of a wife, a model, and Daddy King promised it. But alas, for the modeling business, Molly was not suited categorically. Too small height crossed out her path to the catwalk. and the spoiled prince decided to get rid of the bride immediately, not forgetting to demand the car back, and every single gift that could still be given to another tall girl. But David was delighted with the return of the prodigal minioness. "I will not," affectionately he said. "We'll make a coach out of you. You'll teach aerobics at the Tolstoys. I can't promise much money, but enough for bread and butter." Molly looked hopefully at her benefactor, but he just coughed and turned away. It didn't tell the girls that a new customer had now captured his attention. An old-fashioned figure and a look so vicious that it sent shivers down Molly's body, but let her work, not to leave her without a piece of bread, especially since there was no thought of enrollment in her empty head. Worked with them quietly. By 28, she was even able to buy an apartment in a wooden house. Not a mansion, not a palace, but it was out of the question. But still a guaranteed roof over her head and her own corner, from which no one would ever throw her out. In her personal life, things were far from rosy. Or had the men changed? Or maybe time itself somehow imperceptibly became different. But Molly's suitors were in no hurry to announce the seriousness of their intentions. They willingly spent a nice, special couple of weeks, and then disappeared without explanation. Maybe that's why Molly took such fervent sympathy to Peter's cute neighbor when he complained to her about loneliness and homesickness. "We have more in common than meets the eye," she sighed, and looked deeply into his eyes. "Come to think of it, you and I are both unsung stars. We have been told that we have a great future ahead of us. And where is it? Where are we? In the woods, in the wreckage. You live with a woman you don't love, and I live with no one." Peter silently hugged his neighbor and stroked her head. "Somehow others are luckier than others," sadly he said. "But only because they can hypocrite, cajole, bend, and lie. And you and I don't know how and don't want to live like that. After that, we won't respect ourselves anymore. I'd rather be an out-of-touch star than live like some kind of worm." That's where their rapprochement began. And if Molly was seriously interested in Peter, she was only interested in him insofar as he was so sick of his own banal and dreary existence that he considered any variety for himself. 9 months later, the summer, still timid after the cold spring, was slowly coming into its own. It seemed to be seeping through the rains, pouring warmth through the cloud-clouded skies. Little by little it was pouring in, and yet it was getting warmer outdoors. And people, tired of the long wait, immediately changed into light clothing, even if by evening they had to freeze. Kelly walked through the streets and could barely keep from booing. Today, she finally managed to find a buyer for her apartment. Thank God she would no longer have to face her ex-husband and his already deeply pregnant Molly on a daily basis. And the sight of Peter only amused her to how dejected he looked. Poor guy was always so afraid of even the slightest responsibility. He was looking for some fireworks, feelings, flights of fancy, and he turned out to be a father-to-be. But Molly was unrecognizable. She was glowing with smugness. So Victorious looked at Kelly every time they met and immediately pressed closer to Peter, trying to kiss him, or at least fix his hair. In short, in every way to demonstrate their own well-being, which, according to her plans, simply had to throw the neighbor to the dust of the brochure. But Kelly was not about to be cast into ashes. She was taking her time to find a buyer, and she planned to move to another neighborhood and buy an apartment in the very near future. More of her personal savings should have been enough to cover everything. And if she took out a small loan, there would be enough for new furniture. But the good news didn't end there. The barbershop where Kelly worked recently closed down, but she did not have to look for a part-time job. Miranda recently told Kelly in confidence that there was an opportunity to get a job as a nurse in a maternity hospital nearby. "My daughter worked there," she said. "Freshman year as an intern. Now she's a nurse. And you, Kelly, think about it. You'll make more money there than here. And you'll have 2 or 3 shifts a week free. Thank God you're off your deadbeat now. You should think about your personal life, or at least get some rest. There's no need to pretend." Kelly agreed without a second thought. Money is never superfluous. She liked the new place very much. The maternity ward was small, but the staff was uncommonly friendly and helpful. For the first time in a long time, Kelly felt that her life was beginning to get better. After all, before her divorce from Peter, She had the feeling that by some improbable coincidence, she was in a car with broken brakes and no gearbox. And she raced at breakneck speed straight to the nearest wall. Now there was no wall, and the crazy car was also just a normal life. Molly liked her life with Peter less and less. It was not that she expected him to treat her in a special way, like in the movies. But it was exactly like in the movies, and it turned out as in a film about maniacs. Peter talked endlessly about his admirers, remembering his first love, who had left him and moved to another city. His first, as he put it, love, with which he also did not get along. And all the pictures of these endless persons he carefully kept without end, going through and showing his opinions. Among his treasures were some love notes, and a poem written and dedicated by some reader. Who could have doubted it? There were his drawings, tons of amazing stuff, usually of special value to a girl of 14, 16. But the main topic of his memories now, of course, was Kelly. Peter had an urgent need to talk about her all the time, to discuss her behavior. More importantly, he couldn't figure out if he loved her or not. Can you explain why I have to listen to this all the time? Molly got angry. All this nonsense about your women, loved, not loved. Who needs all that? I'm not interested in it, that's for sure. You sit like an old maid over your wives, your flowers, your diaries, your notes, your soulful names. Don't you hate it yourself? You're a man. But it's my past, answered Peter, shocked to the core by her friend's callousness. I share it with you, telling you the most intimate things. You don't have to share that junk with me, she parried. How do you carry your trash, your drawings, your snowballs, your pictures? So you can go everywhere. You can do it all the time. You better tell me. What are we going to live on? When are you going to get a job? A deadbeat? Well, I'm looking, you know. He kept his head down so Molly wouldn't see his face. He knew that when he lied, his eyes would start to run. And there was no way he could learn to control himself, looking for him. How? If he was looking, he would have found a job a long time ago. Let me tell you something. What do you want to be? Night director of the oil company? Yeah, I do. Yes, I do, because I deserve it. I'm smart, I'm talented, I'm handsome. I'm not going to bend over backwards for my uncle for cents. Happy. I wouldn't mind a few cents. Molly turned her face away from the window, letting her know the conversation was over. How she once wanted to take her husband away from a stupid girl. And now, watching out the window as a freight cab hauled Kelly's furniture out of the house. For the first time, she thought of her neighbor, now ex-neighbor, without animosity or superiority. Maybe she should have talked to Kelly before she gave Peter the collar. You never know what interesting things she might have said about her husband. The wench had had enough of you, she remarked, without turning around, and no wonder. Peter himself felt like he was trapped. He felt truly sorry for himself. He'd walked away from his freedom and ended up in an even greater one. Why did he have to go through so much trouble? One minute Kelly was mocking him, the next, this pregnant woman walking around. Somebody thought of him. That's because I don't have my own apartment or money. Thinking about it, he remembered his parents with a steady, deaf anger. It hurt him that they hadn't taken care of anything, hadn't bought him an apartment, and they could have been better at sending him more money, couldn't they? Peter had never thought about it, especially with such a huge resentment in his soul. Before, for some reason, it had always seemed that everything would work out somehow without much effort, as if by itself. But now he noticed. His parents had started buying apartments for many of his friends, and they did not stop supporting their children with money, even though the children were already earning a lot of money themselves and did not need much help. But maybe this is how it should be. Maybe responsible parents want to give their children at least a good start. And what about him? We gave you what we could. He still didn't want to get a job himself. But since Molly went on maternity leave, life has become many times more difficult. Peter went hungry all the time, and only once in a while, when his parents tossed him some money, he went to a cafe and ordered 2 servings of dumplings hot with thick sour cream and sprinkled with fresh herbs. After that, he would go to a nightclub, satiated and satisfied. There were always enough girls there to have an affair with for a couple of weeks. The girls usually didn't always feed him gourmet food or even taste good, but it was food nonetheless. It wasn't always available at home, though. That said, Molly didn't look hungry. Peter suspected she had some money in her pocket. She buys her extensive maternity rags. And if there's money for clothes, there must be money for food, too. Alas, Molly, stubborn in her greed, didn't share it with him. "Can't get a job," she said. "So take your guitar. Maybe at least you can earn some bread." She threw those words around so contemptuously that it made Peter cringe with humiliation. He had to get so caught up over and over again in his dependence on the women he despised with all his heart. He was ashamed of himself and hated his life for being unsettled and broke. Kelly lovingly furnished her apartment. For the first time in her life, she had the opportunity to do things just the way she liked. On weekends, the girl passionately ran around the markets, shopping, building materials, and then happily mixed and paint, achieving the desired shade. Most importantly, she got a great helper, a neighbor with the unusual name of Jonas. From the apartment across the street, he turned out to be a jack of all trades and was eager to help the pretty girl. Kelly saw that she really liked Jonas, but decided to take her time. She had already rushed once enough. Things were going great at both jobs, too. In the methodology department, she had decided to be promoted and was now the head of the department. She could have quit her part-time job immediately, but Kelly decided to stay at the maternity hospital. Very much she got used to the team. And in general, she fell in love with this place, where you can still see so many happy people every day. Young parents, grandparents, babies in beautiful discharge envelopes. So much joy every day. She sometimes remembered that in her short marriage she too had dreamed of having children. And now she was even glad it hadn't worked out. Peter was panicked to even think of possible parenthood. And for that, Kelly was grateful to him now. She still wanted children very much, but not with Peter, not with him, but with Peter. The approaching deadline frightened her more and more every day. The thought often crossed his mind that he could slip away quietly while his girlfriend was in the maternity ward. Who was stopping him? The main thing was to wait until the maternity hospital. And then everything will be elementary. You just need to make 2 very simple steps. First, gather his things, and second, go wherever he wants. You can even stay with your mother for a while. But then where to? Who knows? Peter had never thought seriously about children, and when he did, he realized that he did not want to become a father in his personal sense. Kids were pretty nasty, constant screaming monsters who sucked all the energy and money out of their parents drop by drop. He didn't want that. Maybe it wasn't that bad, he consoled himself. He could try to get Molly to give the baby to her parents. Let them raise it, bring up their experience. A lot of people do that. Give the child to a grandmother. And themselves live, when else to live is not in his youth. And a plus for me that all the same, the offspring is growing. He didn't know what he thought about it. He didn't need to know and didn't want to know. Who cares what she thinks about it? She's got her life's work, he's got his. As soon as she gives birth, I'll make a condition. Either she gives the baby to his mother or we break up, because I don't need this wiping SOPLE and rule. But I had to get to that point, and it wasn't easy either. Molly was getting cranky, and she had more requests every day. Peter carried her heavy bags, made her morning tea, helped her get dressed, and most importantly, helped her learn because, you see, it was difficult for him, who was used to refuse easily and with a challenge any request. This humility was hard for him. He often thought of Kelly very often. It was a pity he had left her without any children or pregnant women. Accompanying his friend to the maternity hospital was not only tedious, but also embarrassing. As luck would have it, the whole neighborhood came out to bask in the sun on the first real warm day, and he had to worm his way through the line of grannies on the benches, supporting Molly by the elbow. At the same time, each granny, as it seemed to him, was not looking at Molly, but at him arrogantly looking with superiority and filled with gloating. It's just the way you're supposed to be, not a beneficiary. We've been up all night raising kids. Now it's your turn. After handing over to the staff, he was about to leave, or rather to run away at breakneck speed straight to some bar and get drunk. But a strong woman's hand came down on his shoulder. Here we are, and here they don't give him any peace. You better sit here. Suggested him the nurse on duty. Probably won't be long now. I think your wife is about to give birth. You can be the first to congratulate her on the birth of the baby. She's not my wife, Peter told me sharply. She's not my wife at all. But my sister remained unperturbed. Still the same learned caressing voice, the same smile. Professionals. To have them all together and then each separately. All right, so your wife is about to give birth. Have a seat. She pointed to a chair in the foyer. Don't worry, everything will be fine. As soon as the baby is born, we'll let you know right away. In the meantime, I can offer you some coffee. Peter plumped down on the kindly offered chair and covered his face with his hands. Coffee was all he needed. Now, apparently, to have a heart attack and release from everything at once. How to push them all morons, that he does not care about Molly and this child. And that he cares, but only for himself, and his now so shaky freedom. Kelly awoke to a loud, lingering ring on the doorbell. It was 3:00 p.m. on the clock. She got up and threw on her robe. Wow. After all, having moved out of her old house, Kelly was sure she was done with the nocturnal named guests, but apparently she was. Not completely. Who's there? Shouted the girl through the door. She was wary of looking through the peephole. Kelly, it's me, Peter. Peter's familiar voice came through. What are you doing here? How did you get me? Get out of here. I met a girl I knew in the maternity hospital. She gave me your address. You know girls everywhere. Kelly sighed as she opened the door. Already at the maternity hospital, too. What's the reason for this now to be ringing off the hook in the middle of the night? That there's no way you could have waited until morning. No way. Peter stepped into the corridor, and Kelly involuntarily shrieked when she saw his face. It was so pale. Had something happened to Molly? Or did he shake his head and sit down right on the floor? She's fine. An hour ago, the boy was 4 kilos. I don't remember if it was 150 or 200 grams. Anyway, so the baby is healthy too, Kelly asked. Healthy as can be. They said he was screaming. It makes my ears pop. Well, what's the matter then? Did you come to have a drink with me on this occasion? Aya, look, here's the thing. I don't even know how to say it. I've been thinking about everything and how to get away and how to stay. I thought about sending the kid to his grandmother too. But I didn't think about that. I didn't think about something. You say that, then say it. Peter looked up at his ex-wife, red-flowered, crazy eyes, and whispered that black. Well, black, you know? Who's black? The one got angry. Kelly, do you have a conscience? A son was born, and instead of being happy about some glitches, he got black. You yourself are black. Yeah, the baby's a mulatto, yelled Peter. She gave birth to that African American. And you say I'm black. What am I black? Look, it's a sure thing. Maybe you're being pranked, or maybe you're imagining it out of excitement. I couldn't be more sure. What's that supposed to mean? Molly's the one who wanted to hang the baby on me so I could work for both of them. But you'll hang it on you. Do you even have a job? Plowman, he stood up, Kelly. Listen to me. I know there's been a lot of ugly stuff between us, and you're probably right to be mad at me. I'm not angry, the girl hurriedly put it in. I think that at all. Peter interrupted beautifully. It's very good that you're not angry, that you're not angry. It is very good. So nothing can prevent us from trying to make a family again, and a happy one this time. I can. A familiar voice came from behind the door. Jonas walked into the hallway and smiled at the girl. I was still awake. I heard the noise of loud voices and went out to see if I needed help. Do you need help, Kelly? No, Jonas. But thanks anyway. Peter, she said, smiling. Honestly, I don't know what's on your mind, but just know I'm not a part of it. So the best thing for you to do is to go away now and, if possible, never seek to see me again. What are you? Uncertainly, smiling, asked Peter. Do not even offer your ex-husband tea. I will not, replied Kelly. All the best. When the door behind Peter closed, Jonas turned to the girl. By the way about the tea. I got a really good one from home the other day, black with red pepper, lemon crusts, and lingonberries and something. Do you want to come over to my place and try it? And I've got burbets. Kelly got excited. They're really good. Or can I get you some boiled condensed milk now? It was her first time in Jonah's apartment. Kelly had always thought, for some reason, that men only needed a mattress and some drawer they could use instead of a table. But Jonas was different. All the furniture in his apartment was wooden and clearly custom-made. "I'm a carpenter," he smiled, noticing the astonished look on the girl's face. "Here's something I do, and for myself in the kitchen was a big cozy chair. Sit down, Kelly." He invited her to sit down. "Now I'll bring us some tea," and Kelly settled in this chair, inhaling the aroma of wonderful tea. I suddenly felt like she was home. Jonas's house might look a little like a forest witch's hut, but who's to say the owner isn't a wizard? Maybe just a little, but by all means. Otherwise, would it have been so nice here? Would she have wanted to stay here forever? Peter sat in the dormitory where he now lived and worked. True, his job was limited to checking badges for people who came in and pushing the turntable button. For that, he was allowed to live in an empty room. Of course, such an existence was little better than living with Kelly or Molly. But it was better this way. Peter was finally disappointed in women. They were all calculating, unfaithful, mercurial. Each of them demanded that he work, and his earnings, of course, spent on them. But no way. Now that Peter had begun to earn some money on his own, he was even more convinced that he did not want to spend it on anyone but himself. The broads can be a real bummer. He was especially disappointed in Molly. After all, she was a rare bitch. He did not have time to tell Kelly everything, but at the very moment when he was happy with the baby, walking out the door to the hospital, rolled up a huge, all covered with balloons foreign car. A tall man in a strict suit jumped out of it and swung open the door from the passenger seat. He got out, moving leisurely and importantly. A huge, dark-skinned man. When he saw Peter, he leaned over to his colleague and said something softly. Asked a question. Judging by his intonation, the other looked intently into Peter's face, and then nodded and held out his hand. "Good evening." He said, "Hello. My name is Lewis. I am Mr. Zumu's personal assistant and interpreter." This Lewis spoke Russian very well, though with an accent. Peter, he did not quite understand what the two men wanted from him, but managed to guess that one of them, in all likelihood, was the happy father of the dark-skinned baby, the one standing off to the side, barely moving his lips. "Mr. Zumu asks me to tell you, dear Peter," Lewis continued, "that he is eternally grateful to you for taking care of his fiancée Molly and his newborn son. Mr. Zumu admires the unselfish way in which you took care of a woman who is neither your relative nor your wife. And of course, you are free to name whatever amount you deem sufficient to compensate you for all the trouble you have caused." Still he hesitated. Oh, that wretch Molly. Is that what she said to her fiancé? That I was a sort of free servant and that I was blowing in her ears about love. So that if anything happens, I won't be alone and have someone to carry the heavy things from the store. What a terrific bitch. Peter thought of her with almost disgust, with rage, and yet with admiration too. "Tell Mr. Zum," he said proudly, "that we don't take money for unselfishness." Now, a few months after what had happened, Peter still could not forgive himself for this unnatural hussar prank. They offered money, and by all appearances, normal money. So he would have taken it. He would be sitting now, not in that stinking dormitory, but somewhere on a tropical island, under a palm tree, with mulatto chicks around. Idiot, stupid idiot. Every time I remembered the missed opportunity, Peter was ready to punch himself in the face. But on the other hand, he had to get used to the climate and the special milk. And here it was all his own, all native. And the girls are also their own, light-skinned, and speak a language he understands. Molly and her youngest went to Africa. They said there's a lot of money there, an industrialist. Well, it's possible. But it was still worth taking the money. After all those Zuma bigwigs owed him. He shared an apartment with him, lived with him. And she, by the way, hadn't fallen once, hadn't twisted her ankle, hadn't even hit a corner. He helped her carry packages from the store, whether he helped her or not, he helped her. After all, who took her to the hospital? He did. So he had every right to rewards, but he was stupid. But if you look at it another way, it's a story you can tell to the girls you know. And it goes like this to begin with. One time I was offered a big, very big reward money, but I turned it down. Why? Because I'm not for sale. He really liked that last phrase. He'll find occasion to rejoice in her today, thank God, in pretty girls. There's never a shortage.